I turned 30 today expecting at least a modest celebration with my family. Instead, my father Frank, mother Diane, brother Thomas, and sister Tiffany ambushed me with life-changing news over the dinner I prepared. They sold our family home where I rented the basement to Thomas, and I had 48 hours to leave. 3 years later, now that I own a successful property, suddenly they want a piece of what I built. Before I tell you this story, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button to join me through this painful journey of betrayal and hard-won independence. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts, shaped me in ways I never fully understood until recently. Our two-story colonial house on Maple Street represented everything about my family, traditional, proper, and hiding countless tensions beneath a respectable facade. My father Frank worked as a chief accountant at a real estate firm downtown. He ran our household with the same precision he applied to balance sheets. Everything had to add up perfectly or face harsh consequences. My mother Diane devoted herself entirely to maintaining our family image. The president of the neighborhood association and active church member, she constantly reminded us that reputation was everything. What will people think became her mantra whenever any of us stepped out of line. My older brother Thomas, 5 years, my senior, embodied everything my parents valued. Straight-A student captain of the debate team and eventually Harvard Law graduate. Every family gathering inevitably included a toast to his latest achievement or promotion at his prestigious downtown firm. My younger sister, Tiffany, 3 years behind me, somehow secured the position of the golden child despite average grades. Her charm and social skills won our parents over completely. Then there was me, Cameron, stuck in the middle and never quite measuring up. From childhood, architecture fascinated me. I would spend hours sketching buildings and creating intricate structures with whatever materials I could find. My bedroom walls featured detailed drawings of skyscrapers and renovated historic buildings rather than sports posters. Drawing pretty buildings won't pay the bills. Cameron, my father, would say dismissively whenever he caught me working on designs. Look at Thomas. He understands what success really means. By high school, the pressure to follow Thomas into finance or law became unbearable. My parents refused to support my application to architecture programs, insisting instead on business schools. "We're not wasting money on an art degree," my father declared during my senior year. To keep peace, I reluctantly enrolled in finance at Boston University, while secretly taking architecture electives whenever possible. After college, with student loans and limited job prospects in a struggling economy, I moved back into my family home. The basement had been converted into a small apartment years earlier for my grandmother, now vacant since her passing. I paid monthly rent to my parents, not insignificant considering my entry-level salary at a local bank, and handled most household maintenance tasks as an unspoken additional payment. For 2 years, I worked that soul-crushing banking job during the day while developing my architectural portfolio at night. Slowly saving money for my eventual escape, I envisioned moving to a city with better design opportunities. The arrangement wasn't ideal, but it seemed temporary, a stepping stone toward independence. As my 30th birthday approached, things began feeling strange around the house. Hushed conversations would stop when I entered rooms. Thomas and his wife visited more frequently, measuring things and examining the basement with critical eyes. When I asked what was happening, my mother would wave away my concerns with vague reassurances about family planning. Still, I maintained hope for my birthday, not expecting anything extravagant. My celebrations had always been modest, compared to my siblings' elaborate parties, but perhaps at least acknowledgement. I even prepared a special dinner planning to share exciting news. A promising job interview with a small architectural firm willing to take a chance on a career switcher. The evening of my birthday arrived with ominous tension. My family showed up empty-handed, no cards, no gifts, not even the traditional birthday cake my mother usually insisted upon. Conversation during dinner felt stilted, with Thomas checking his watch repeatedly, while Tiffany avoided eye contact entirely. After dessert, a store-bought pie I purchased myself. My father cleared his throat for what I thought might be a delayed birthday toast. "Cameron, we've made some decisions about the house," he announced instead, folding his hands on the table. Your mother and I have decided to downsize. Thomas and Jessica are buying the house from us at a family discount. My mother jumped in, her voice artificially bright. They need more space for the baby, and this neighborhood has much better schools than their current place. The confusion must have shown on my face, because Thomas sighed impatiently. What they're trying to say is that you need to move out. Jessica wants to convert the basement into a home office and nursery. When I asked, still processing this bombshell, "Well, we close on Thursday," my father replied, avoiding eye contact. "So you'll need to be out by then." Thursday. 48 hours from now. On my birthday dinner, they were giving me 2 days to vacate the home I'd lived in for most of my life. "You've known about this for weeks, haven't you?" I asked, suddenly understanding the whispered conversations and strange behavior. "You all planned this." Tiffany at least had the decency to look ashamed, but my mother simply straightened the silverware on the table. "You're 30 years old now, Cameron. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet instead of depending on family. Thomas was married with his own mortgage at your age." The betrayal cut deep, not just the eviction, but the deliberate timing, the lack of warning, the callous delivery on what should have been a day of celebration. As I looked around at their faces, impatient, dismissive, eager to move on, I realized with crushing clarity exactly where I stood in this family's hierarchy of concern. The following morning brought chaos and heartbreak as I frantically packed my belongings into whatever containers I could find. Each item I wrapped represented another memory of a home that had never truly felt like mine. Thomas and Jessica arrived early, walking through my half-packed living space, measuring walls and discussing renovation plans as if I were already gone. "We'll need to rip out all this old carpeting," Jessica remarked, literally stepping over a box of my books. "And those water stains on the ceiling will have to be addressed before we paint." I bit back the urge to remind them that those water stains appeared after I repeatedly asked my father to fix the leaking pipes, a repair he deemed unnecessary despite my offers to split the cost. Instead, I focused on packing faster, desperate to escape this final humiliation. With limited savings and no time to secure an apartment, I booked a room at the Pinewood Motel, a dingy establishment on the highway, known for weekly rates and questionable cleanliness. As I loaded my Honda Civic with whatever would fit, dark clouds gathered overhead, perfectly matching my mood. By the time I made my third trip to the car, rain poured down, mercilessly soaking cardboard boxes and damaging several books and sketch pads I couldn't fit under cover. My mother watched from the kitchen window but never offered to help or suggest I wait out the storm. My father remained in his study, apparently too busy with paperwork to say goodbye to his son. Only Tiffany briefly appeared on the porch, handing me an envelope containing $500. "I'm sorry," she whispered, glancing back toward the house nervously. "I tried to convince them to give you more notice." The money helped but couldn't erase the betrayal. That night, lying on a lumpy mattress beneath flickering fluorescent lights, listening to arguments through paper-thin walls, I called friends, seeking temporary housing. Most expressed sympathy, but offered excuses. No spare room, landlord, restrictions, relationship, complications. The few who might have helped lived too far from my workplace to be practical. Morning brought additional disappointment when my phone remained silent. Not one family member had called to check if I had found shelter. Fighting exhaustion and despair, I showered in the motel's mildew-scented bathroom before heading to my scheduled job interview at Westridge Architectural Associates. The interview went poorly, sleep-deprived and emotionally drained. I struggled to focus on the principal architect's questions about my portfolio. My usual enthusiasm for design concepts came across as forced, my responses disjointed. When asked why I wanted to leave banking for architecture, my honest answer about family pressure and thwarted dreams sounded like a therapy session rather than professional motivation. I left knowing I had failed to make the impression needed. 3 more failed interviews followed over the next 2 weeks as my savings dwindled and motel expenses mounted. Eventually, the manager informed me they needed my room for convention visitors willing to pay premium rates. With nowhere else to go and barely $800 remaining, I began sleeping in my car, parking overnight in the far corner of a Walmart lot, where security seemed less likely to hassle vehicle dwellers. Each morning I would wash up in public restrooms before heading to the nearby library to use their computers for job searches. Each night, I returned to my car, reclining the seat as far as possible to create some semblance of a bed. My meals consisted primarily of peanut butter sandwiches and whatever fruit would survive, without refrigeration. On day 16 of homelessness, seeking relief from the summer heat and free Wi-Fi, I ventured into a small independent coffee shop called Grounded. While updating my resume at a corner table, I struggled with an architectural rendering on my aging laptop. Frustrated by the software glitches, I switched to hand-sketching modifications on a napkin. "That's an interesting approach to the roofline," commented an older man watching from the adjacent table. "Mind if I take a closer look?" Gerald Harmon introduced himself as the founder of Harmon Design Group, a boutique firm specializing in adaptive reuse of historic buildings. 73 years old, with silver hair and paint-spattered jeans, he projected an aura of creative energy that belied his age. For 2 hours, we discussed architecture philosophy and practical challenges of modern urban design. "You've got good instincts," Gerald concluded, examining my portfolio on my laptop screen. "Raw talent, but the technical foundation is there." "Where are you working now?" The truth spilled out before I could craft a more dignified response. My banking background, the family eviction, the current unemployment, and homelessness. Rather than offering uncomfortable pity, Gerald simply nodded thoughtfully. "My junior designer quit last week to follow his girlfriend to Chicago. It's entry level, probably less than you made in banking, but it's real architectural work. Interested in interviewing tomorrow." The position at Harmon Design Group paid barely enough to cover expenses, but offered something far more valuable: legitimate entry into the field I'd dreamed of since childhood. Gerald's small team occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse, with drafting tables crowded between structural columns and material samples stacked in every available corner. My first assignment involved redrawing outdated floor plans for a 1,922 department store being converted to office space. Tedious work that nonetheless filled me with satisfaction banking never provided. After 2 months of proving my reliability and working excessive hours, I secured a tiny studio apartment in Somerville, a less desirable neighborhood with higher crime rates but affordable rent. The apartment measured barely 500 square feet, with water pressure that alternated between trickle and fire hose without warning, and neighbors whose domestic disputes provided unwanted late-night entertainment. Still, having a door I could close, a shower without time limits, and a real bed felt luxurious after weeks in my vehicle. Just as things began stabilizing, a cousin reached out via Facebook with disturbing news. According to family gatherings I hadn't been invited to, my parents had crafted an entirely different narrative about my departure. They claimed I had abruptly moved out after receiving too many house rules, portraying themselves as bewildered victims of their ungrateful middle child. Relatives and family friends received carefully edited stories about my irresponsible choices and difficult personality. Only one brief message came directly from family. A text from Tiffany reading, "I know what really happened, but Mom and Dad are falling apart over Thomas's issues. I can't take your side publicly. I hope you understand someday." This revelation hardened something inside me. Working 60-hour weeks at the firm and taking freelance visualization projects on weekends, I poured every ounce of energy into establishing myself professionally. My health suffered: weight loss, recurring insomnia, stress-induced acid reflux, but my portfolio expanded rapidly with increasingly complex projects. 18 months into my architectural career, Gerald called an unexpected office meeting. Harmon Design Group had been approached about rehabilitating the Whitmore Building, an abandoned 6-story textile factory built in 1890. Now sitting derelict in what was becoming a desirable neighborhood. The developer wants retail on ground level, creative offices on floors 2 through 4, and potential residential on the top floors, Gerald explained, spreading site photos across the conference table. They've approached 3 firms with presentations due in 3 weeks. This would be our largest project ever if we land it. Working nearly around the clock, I developed a concept integrating modern functionality while celebrating the building's industrial heritage. My proposal preserved the massive timber columns and exposed brick, while introducing dramatic skylights and interior courtyards to bring natural light into the building's core. The top 2 floors featured loft-style apartments with private roof terraces carved into the existing structure. When presentation day arrived, the client Harrington Development Group responded enthusiastically to our concept, particularly the residential components. After winning the contract, James Harrington, the firm's founder, approached me directly. "Gerald tells me this was primarily your vision," he said, examining my detailed renderings. "I like working with hungry young talent. Would you be interested in a different arrangement for the penthouse level?" His proposal shocked me. Instead of creating 6 smaller apartments as planned, Harrington suggested designing 2 luxury penthouses, one for himself and offering me the opportunity to purchase the other at construction cost, as both investment and residence, with creative control over the design. "I need a 15% down payment before construction starts," Harrington explained. "The rest can be financed through completion. It's a significant risk, but you'd be building equity in a prime location while showcasing your design skills." The required down payment represented every dollar I had saved over 2 grueling years, plus additional funds I would need to borrow. Gerald, seeing my hesitation, invited me to dinner at his home that evening. "Architecture is art made permanent through risk," he said, pouring whiskey into crystal glasses that contrasted sharply with his modest living room. "I mortgaged everything I owned at your age to buy my first building. Scared the hell out of me, but 30 years later, it's still the best decision I ever made. After a sleepless night weighing possibilities against probabilities, I signed the investment agreement. For the next 18 months, the Whitmore building consumed my existence. Beyond my regular work for Gerald, I spent evenings and weekends refining details of my future home: custom millwork, specialized lighting, space-saving built-ins, and an open-air courtyard carved into what had been a mechanical room. When construction completed, the transformation astonished even those who had watched its progress daily. The penthouse featured 16-foot ceilings with original timber beams, floor-to-ceiling windows, framing city views, and a rooftop garden, offering private outdoor space, extraordinary features in a city known for cramped living quarters. Architectural Digest featured the renovation in their Historic Transformations issue, with my penthouse prominently highlighted. Local news covered the building's opening, interviewing me about the challenges of adaptive reuse in historic structures. Suddenly, my portfolio included a nationally recognized project, and my own signature living space served as the ultimate professional calling card. Additional commissions followed, first small renovations, then larger projects, as my reputation grew. By my 33rd birthday, I had 5 employees working under me at Gerald's firm, with discussions underway about partnership opportunities. The frightened homeless man sleeping in a Walmart parking lot had transformed into a rising architectural talent with financial security and growing professional recognition. 3 years and 2 months after being thrown out on my 30th birthday, I returned home one evening to find Tiffany waiting in my building's lobby. Time had not been kind to her. Stress lines aged her face, and her typically immaculate appearance showed signs of hasty assembly. "I need to talk to you," she said, eyes darting nervously. "It's important. Family stuff." Upstairs in my penthouse, Tiffany moved from window to window, admiring the space with thinly veiled envy, before finally settling on my custom sofa. 3 years of silence, and now she appeared unannounced, clearly wanting something. "Thomas's law firm collapsed last year," she began without preamble. "They made some high-risk investments for clients that went bad, really bad. There's a class action lawsuit, and he's personally named in some of the claims." I listened without interrupting, as she outlined a cascading financial disaster. Thomas had convinced our parents to mortgage their downsized condominium to invest in his firm's expansion. They had additionally co-signed business loans, putting their retirement funds and home at risk. The family house, my former home, faced foreclosure proceedings after Thomas defaulted on payments. "Dad asked me to talk to you," she finally admitted. "They know about your success, the magazine features, the property values in the Whitmore building. They believe that since they supported you for so many years, your current success is partly their accomplishment too." The breathtaking audacity momentarily rendered me speechless. Supported me. They threw me out with 2 days' notice on my birthday. Tiffany shifted uncomfortably. "They see it differently. You lived at home after college while building your portfolio. They paid for your education. Dad says family resources helped make you who you are, so your success should be considered a family asset. The real purpose of her visit emerged through careful questioning. My parents and Thomas had consulted with an attorney about potential claims to my property or income based on their previous investment in my upbringing and education. Though the lawyer apparently discouraged formal legal action, they remained convinced of their moral entitlement to my success. They want to meet, Tiffany concluded, to discuss how you can help the family through this difficult time. As Dad puts it, it's time to repay what you owe. Against my better judgment, I agreed to a meeting at my penthouse the following evening. My family arrived precisely at 7, their expressions mixing disapproval and awe as they surveyed my home. My mother ran her finger along custom shelving as if checking for dust. My father paced the perimeter, mentally calculating square footage and property values. Thomas, noticeably thinner and gray-tinged, examined every surface with barely concealed resentment. "This is quite a place you've made for yourself," my father finally said. "Hard to believe this is the same boy who couldn't even keep his room clean." Before I could respond, Thomas interjected. "Let's not waste time with small talk. We're here because this family is facing financial ruin while you're living in luxury." For the next 45 minutes, they outlined their expectations. They wanted me to invest in Thomas's new legal consultancy business. They needed funds to prevent foreclosure on both properties. They expected me to cover their mounting legal fees. Most astonishingly, they suggested I should sell my penthouse and use the proceeds to purchase a larger property where we could all live as a family again. After all, my mother added, "We're the ones who raised you with values and education. Your success grew from the foundation we provided." As they spoke, 3 years of suppressed anger crystallized into perfect clarity. The people sitting before me hadn't come to reconcile or rebuild relationships. They hadn't even come to apologize. They had come to claim ownership of my hard-won success while dismissing the very real harm they had caused. "I was homeless because of you," I said, quietly interrupting Thomas's detailed financial proposal. "I slept in my car for weeks. Not one of you called to see if I was alive." My father waved dismissively. "That's ancient history. Families have disagreements. What matters is coming together in times of crisis. Like, you came together for me during my crisis," I asked. "The one you created." Thomas's expression hardened. "We've consulted with attorneys about this, Cameron. There's precedent for family members having claim to assets developed through family support and resources. We're hoping to resolve this amicably, but we're prepared to explore all options." The threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. In that moment, facing their entitlement and manipulation, something broke permanently in my understanding of family. These people defined relationships solely through obligation and transaction. Their love, if it existed at all, came with conditions I could never satisfy. Standing up, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city, where I had rebuilt my life from nothing. "I think you should leave now, you ungrateful," my father began, but I cut him off. "I'll have my attorney contact you tomorrow with a one-time offer of limited financial assistance enough to prevent immediate foreclosure contingent upon signing a comprehensive release of all claims. That's it. That's all you'll ever get from me." Thomas stepped toward me, finger-pointing. "You don't get to dismiss us like employees. We're your family. We have rights." "No," I interrupted, surprising myself with the calm in my voice. "You forfeited those rights 3 years ago. Please leave my home now, or I'll call security to escort you out." Their expressions of shock and outrage as they departed brought no satisfaction, only the hollow confirmation that I had never truly been seen or valued by the people who should have loved me most. In the aftermath of that confrontation, I learned painful but necessary lessons about family boundaries and self-worth. My attorney drafted a limited financial support agreement, enough to prevent immediate foreclosure, but structured as a formal loan with legal protections for me. I required a signed acknowledgement of their actions 3 years prior and explicit release of any claims to my current or future assets. Thomas refused, initially threatening vague legal action, but their precarious financial situation eventually forced acceptance. Our communication now exists solely through attorneys, a sterile arrangement that nevertheless provides essential boundaries. The experience forced me to reconstruct my understanding of family. Blood relationships. I discovered guarantee nothing about love, support, or respect. Instead, I began building connections with people who valued me for who I am, rather than what I could provide. Gerald became a mentor and father figure, eventually offering me full partnership in his firm. Colleagues became friends, then chosen family, creating a support network based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Therapy helped identify and heal patterns developed during childhood, the desperate need for approval, the belief that my value depended on usefulness to others, the habit of minimizing my own needs. Slowly, I learned to recognize my accomplishments without seeking external validation. The architectural practice grew beyond my expectations, specializing in transforming neglected historic properties into vibrant mixed-use spaces. Each project represents not just professional success, but personal redemption, creating homes and communities where people feel valued and belonging. 3 years after that final confrontation, I received a letter from Tiffany. Unlike our parents and Thomas, who remain entrenched in resentment, she had begun her own journey toward understanding. Her note expressed genuine remorse for her role in the family dynamics and her failure to stand up for truth. While not ready for full reconciliation, the letter opened a small door toward potential healing. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome has been finding peace without complete resolution. The childhood longing for parental approval may never fully disappear, but it no longer drives my decisions. Success, measured by others' standards, has been replaced by fulfillment on my own terms. Today, watching sunset from my rooftop garden, I realize the greatest asset my struggle provided wasn't this physical home, but the internal foundation I built for myself. True security comes not from walls and deeds, but from knowing your own worth despite others' failure to recognize it. Genuine family transcends blood and obligation, emerging instead through mutual respect and unconditional support. The journey from homelessness to home was never really about physical shelter, but about finding belonging within myself first. The only foundation that cannot be taken away. Have you ever had family members feel entitled to your success after offering no support during your struggles? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up so others facing similar challenges might find it. Remember, sometimes the family you choose becomes more important than the family you were born into. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey helps you navigate your own path to finding true home and belonging.